Hello, everyone, and we are live. Welcome to this student panel. Today, we're going to be discussing how to find the right master's for you. I'm joined by five very great individuals who are going to give some of the insight on why they chose their master's programs, maybe what they're thinking now, as well as some advice for those of you who are considering pursuing your master's. It's a big task to kind of take on, and hopefully these guys can give you some of that feedback. Please feel free. We are monitoring chat. If you have some questions that you'd like to ask them, please type them in, and I will do my best to go ahead and ask them. But I think it would be great to go ahead and start introductions. My name is Brendan Kelly. I'm one of the monitors over at the GMAT Club, and I will go ahead and we'll do a roundtable introduction of each of our candidates today. Abraham, if you want to go ahead and start us off.
Hello everyone, so Ibrahim here and I'm in ESMT Berlin. I'm doing the Masters in Management program here, and if you have gone through the website, it's the Innovative Management that I'm studying here at ESMT. So yeah, I'll answer your questions around in the next 1 hour or so, and yeah.
Great, thank you. Tofu?
Yeah, hi, I'm Tafo. I'm doing the Master in Finance program at LSE here in London. Previously done finance in my undergrad also. Finished that last summer, so just continuing along that track. Obviously, the experience has been altered a bit from what we've all expected, but I've been having a great time so far, despite the current circumstances, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Great, thank you so much. Sophia?
Yeah, hi everyone, my name is Sophia, and I'm currently doing my Master's in Management at Etzscher University in Germany. I come from India and I've done my bachelor's there. Post which I have close to 3 years of work experience, after which I decided to study here. And like Toffa said, at least in the beginning, so this is my second year, the first year I got to be in class, which was amazing. But even now, I think we are managing quite well. So any questions, feel free to ask.
Great, thank you. Abhishek?
Hi guys, I'm Abhishek. I'm pursuing a dual degree master's at IE in Madrid. It's Master's in Management and Master's in Business Analytics and Big Data. And I come from a computer engineering background. I am from Mumbai, India. I have a couple of years of experience and looking forward to having a healthy discussion with you guys.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Avinash.
Hi, everyone. My name is Avinash. I graduated from an MSc in Finance program at the National University of Singapore last year. And I'm currently based in Amsterdam, where I work in M&A at the PwC. Born and raised in Aruba. It's a small island in the Caribbean. And looking forward to contributing to the discussions today.
Fantastic. And I know everyone's very curious about kind of the current state of master's programs and everything, but I think to start, I want to ask the question of why did you choose the master's program you did? I mean, I know a lot of people that are kind of going through this process. There are a lot of schools with a lot of different programs that all have different requirements and different benefits. So what is it that drove you to your program? And not is there anything you would do differently, but is there anything that you wished you had thought about or that you would like to tell others as they consider what program they want to choose? I'll toss the mic to anyone who wants it.
So
for him,
I'll just go first. So initially I just had to make a decision on a 1-year master's and a 2-year master's, but my bachelor was in business administration, so it was more of a general degree itself. So I wanted to do a master's which offered a specialization, and that could be possible in a 2-year program. So that came down to just 2-year programs in France, in Europe in general. So I was focused on, so my main field which I was focusing was towards entrepreneurship, innovation, and strategy. So I went through all the colleges, the universities that offered such a program, and ESMT, being in Berlin, it offers the opportunities which the city has to provide. So a lot of startup scene in Germany is based in Berlin itself. So that was something I considered a lot. Also the network opportunities, the career surveys, the specialization itself. So all of these just piled up, these compiled together to, yeah, this is why. And I was in Germany already. I did my bachelor's from here, so I wanted to stay in Germany as well. So ESMD was by far the best option.
Fantastic. Anyone have anything to add to that?
If you mind, I would say something. I think for me, the question was whether I should do an MBA or an MIM, and I think that's a valid question that a lot of people have, who are typically not familiar with the European concept why MIM necessarily exists. And for me, it was that question. And since I had worked before, I was leaning towards an MBA. But later, after a lot of research, I realized that from my perspective and from my skill set, it made more sense to actually do an MIM rather than an MBA. And I think that's one question that people should consider. And I think for an MBA, you do require a lot more. You should ideally have a lot more experience. So that's one thing I did consider while choosing my course here.
That's a great consideration. Thank you for that, Sophie. And Abhishek, I saw you unmute for a second. Did you have something?
Yes. I kind of had the same process. I had worked for a couple of years, and that's when I felt the requirement that I need to do a management course, because my background was in engineering, and I really thought that if I learn a bit about the business, I could progress in my career into a decision-making or a managerial position. Now, because I had a couple of years of experience and my research told me that MBA is a course for highly experienced professionals, I narrowed down to the MIM. And when I look at the MIM courses all over the world, Europe is actually the hub where MIM is more prominent and things are happening better. Also, IE was offering a dual master's option, and I'm really interested in the big data world and the technology side of things, which gave me a complete package and helped me choose this as my option to go for my master's. If I would like to add something, it actually depends on where you are in your career and in your life, and that mainly influences your decision, how old you are and how long have you worked for, and then just do what interests you.
Yeah, no, fantastic point. Self-reflection is a big part of the application process that I think a lot of people skip out on. Is they just start running through and finding things without that self-reflection. But Avinash, I saw you unmute as well, so feel free to add.
Yeah, so basically to add on what Ibrahim, Sophia, and Abhishek said, I think also consider the whole experience of doing an MBA or a master. So for me, for instance, I've been in Europe for quite a long time, and I wanted to get also a bit more cultural exposure to a different region, a different environment, which is why I chose to do my master's in Asia. So apart from what the others have said about, like, content and about specific masters, also think of your whole experience. And if you want to sort of broaden your horizons culturally and gain more perspective, then also consider a master out of your comfort zone in a different country or a different region.
Yeah, that's a great point. Breaking out of that comfort zone and heading to a whole new country kind of gives you a perspective on life that life and business and career that I just don't think you get without kind of taking that jump. So that's a great point. And Tofel, I'm going to throw you under the bus here as well, because I know you mentioned this in your introduction, but this is probably one of the hotter questions right now. I mean, people who have been planning on getting their masters for a while now, they're thinking about applying, but they're nervous. What does this new school year look like? What does this new year look like? So, and I'll ask this to the broader audience, but Tofel, maybe starting out, what were your expectations going into your master's program? And then how has this year kind of either altered those expectations? Has the school kind of done things to help raise those expectations? What are your thoughts on just kind of the whole school year, and then maybe what it looks like in the future as well?
Yeah, so I think the biggest things that I was expecting have, to a certain extent, come true, and that comes down to the reason why I picked the program in the first place. I was looking at several different programs and judging them on different criteria that I had set up, For example, how good its international reputation was, whether I found the curriculum interesting, the availability of funding, whether it had a reputation for having a smart cohort, all these things. And of course, the things like the curriculum, that stuff was mostly set in stone, you could say, but it's the delivery that has sort of been altered. But I must say that the overall experience this year with doing a master's during COVID, it's been very dependent on what school you're in my experience, and from speaking with people from other schools. I think being at LSE, we've been exceptionally lucky this year because we've had access to in-person teaching during our entire first term. And we had plenty of in-person activities during our pre-sessional part of the program, which I know for a fact was not available at many of the other top schools in London and in other parts of the country. So I do think that while this year is definitely not optimal for doing a master, I do think that being at LSE, I've had a comparatively good experience compared to how it could have been otherwise.
Yeah, no, great point. I mean, it's definitely the current situation is altering people's direct expectations, but it's good to see that a lot of schools are taking those steps to still make it a wholesome and inclusive experience. Anyone else have kind of feedback on expectations versus reality at the moment? Ibrahim?
Yeah, so I would just add that for all those who are listening us, who will be joining masters later this year, I think they must be very hopeful because probably they'll be on campus throughout their program. As far as my experience is concerned, when I joined the program, it was on campus. So there were groups divided and then we were on campus. But I think after about 5 weeks, there was the second wave of COVID and we had to go back to lockdown. But that's where the university comes in and they were very helpful. There was a lot of sports stuff, nice lectures. The professors were available all the time for personal, if you want to meet after class for a short lesson or for a short talk, they were available. So this support around helped get through the tough times. And now I think in the next few months, we'll be back on campus. And that's something to look forward to.
Fantastic. And I do see actually a couple questions in the chat, so I do want to ask some of those. One of them being, were any of you confused between choosing a master's in management and master's in finance? And I know we have both on the panel today, so that definitely helps. But if so, how did you distinguish between the two? Why did you choose one versus the other? And maybe what tips do you have for someone who is also kind of battling that back and forth? Hand it off to,
yeah, I mean, I'll go forward, even though I'm not doing a master's in finance, I'm doing my master's in management. But I think I'm just coming from a perspective that I was quite clear that finance is not my thing. I think it's just the difference of knowing that master's in finance is a specialization, that you actually do finance for the whole 2 years. Rather in master's in management, you can have it as an option, but it would be alongside with all the other subjects that are there to offer. And then in the second year, if your college offers, you could choose finance as one of your specialization. But I think it's just a fact that master's in finance is extremely specific. And as long as you have the clarity in the beginning that that's what you want to do and you see a future in it, go ahead and do it. But for people who do not, or either who do not want to do finance but want to do a master's in management, it's for them. And second, it's for those people who have interest in finance but are not extremely certain that that's exactly what they want to do. So if you want to explore, you can simply choose master's in management and then take courses in finance. But if you're clear, just go ahead and do master's in finance.
Yeah, I would pretty much agree with Sophia. So I did a master's in finance. But I would say also it depends on your background, because, for instance, I have a business administration background, which is already quite broad. So if you already have some exposure to finance, for instance, in your undergrad, use that as a judgment to decide whether you think that you want to further specialize in that. And if the answer is no, then I would then strongly consider a master's in management. So maybe in some, I would say a master's in management could be a bit more broad, whereas master's in finance is much more specific and much more specialized. But maybe Tofel can agree or disagree with that.
Yeah, well, for me personally, it wasn't really a choice between Master in Finance and Master in Management, because I was never interested in management in the first place. So it was an easy decision. But yeah, I definitely agree with Avinash. If you've had some kind of exposure to finance in the past, then it's a very good idea to use that exposure to decide whether you want to specialize further into just finance, rather than doing a master in management and having a bit of finance on the side, so to speak.
Yeah, great points. And I think a common theme you'll probably see through several of these questions is self-reflection is always going to be the most important thing. If you're not self-reflecting and understanding where you've been and where you want to go, you're not going to be able to make these decisions. So if anything, when you're listening to these individuals, understand that they went through their own self-reflection and this is how they arrived at that point. So thank you guys for those answers. So one of the reasons you go to get these master's degrees and go to these master's programs is, of course, the jobs that come after. So I see a couple questions in the chat that I would like to go ahead and pull up. One of them right now are job opportunities for MIM, and I'm going to use the master's in finance as well, because this is definitely both. But I'd like to gear that more towards the current climate. What do the job opportunities look like right now? What does recruiting look like on campus? How are you making the best of it given these certain times, these circumstances? What does that look like, and what do you expect in the future?
I could jump on that if you like that. Because of the pandemic and because of COVID coming in, actually we are able to utilize some resources in a better way, because now all the processes have been shifted online. And one of our professors also say that this is actually the best time to be a student rather than being in a job or going out, because all the teachers and the professors are now more accessible because of the time they save traveling to you or having actually booking appointments or having interactions. It is more easy to approach people in the industry, and also those companies which actually had to come and make visits and presentations once a month, and then you would spend out time for that. The talent and career departments in our college have been able to accumulate that in one day and build packages for talent and career setup, in which a lot of companies come on one platform and they are available to talk to you all day. So it's easier to find your profile in multiple places, spending lesser time, and being able to utilize the fact that things are online now. It's the key right now, and I think the job scenario is improving a bit. And if you're doing something you like and you are skilled in that, it's easy to show your uniqueness and how you stand out. I feel that way.
Yeah, great points. Yeah, the online atmosphere has definitely changed a lot, but I like that point that it can honestly be a benefit in some ways because people are more accessible. But no, great points. Ibrahim, I saw you unmute. Did you have something to add there?
Yeah, so Abhishek mentioned it from the lens of COVID, but for students who are applying this year, and the job opportunities they're seeking would be from 18 to 24 months from now. So in that case, if talking about Germany, I would say in Berlin, the startup scene, it's expanding. It's very international. You could still get very good internships and jobs with only English proficiency. Some industries depend. So for example, if you're going for consulting, okay, in-house consulting, English could work. But for example, if management consultancy, you would mostly require German. That's changing, but not very at a very pace or something. And it always depends on your industry and what you are aiming, which company you're aiming for. But the career service, speaking about ESMT, is great, and there's a lot of network opportunities, career fairs, and then alumni panels, and a lot of things going on with the career service itself. So it's really bright times ahead, especially after COVID.
Great. No, thank you for that. And I want to give the Masters in Finance guys maybe a chance as well, just for any of the finance guys or finance people in the chat and watching live. What about in y'all's industry? Have you seen major movements in the job market? How do you think it's going to be in the future? What are your thoughts?
So I can just start by saying that most of the companies I've been applying to during this academic year, they've all said that they've gotten way more applications this year than ever before. And it's also just reasonable to assume that there aren't as many roles around for people to apply to in general. So I'd say, in short, if you're trying to find work and get some experience this year, then you may have to be a bit more open to applying to roles that you otherwise may have overlooked, especially if you don't have an incredibly strong profile with lots of relevant work experience from before. And I also know from my own cohort and from the people that I've spoken to that it's been tough this year. But I do think that for those of you thinking about applying right now to a Master in Finance program or a Master in Management program, I would expect this to ease up in the coming years, and that if you apply now, then upon graduating, hopefully things will look a lot better than they do now.
No, great point. And I think maybe something to consider here is, the scene might change in 2 years when you are applying, but maybe take this time to start getting a better understanding of your own profile. Take the advice of everyone here who's kind of going through this higher application season and kind of the learnings that they've had to do, and apply that to your own, so that when application volume goes down and more openings come up, you can be at the top of your game, if you will. But no, thank you all for those answers. I do have another question that I've seen a lot of people ask, and I'm trying to find it again in the chat, but it was regarding people who come in with 0 years of work experience. I'm trying to find where that chat went, but it was basically someone who is maybe an undergraduate right now looking at master's programs, don't have years of business experience, maybe an internship or two. Is it true that those people cannot get into master's programs, or what? What have you seen? I'll let anyone take that. Ibrahim?
Yeah, I actually saw that question and I highlighted it. It's a misconception that you require, 2 years of work experience or a lot of industry specific experience. There's also a question about industry specific. That's not really true, because MIM and MBA, the main difference is that MIM is aimed at students who are fresh graduates and who do not bring in a lot of experience. And that's actually good if you don't have a lot of experience. Regarding 0 years of experience, that should be fine in most colleges and most universities, because the course itself is designed in a way that they target these students. So if someone's coming with 5 years of experience, MIM is not the way to go, and I would say MBA is the way to go. So yeah, I hope I answered it.
No, that answered fantastic. Does anyone have any additional points on that, Avinash?
Yeah, so to add to what Ibrahim said, I think I would say an MBA would require a bit more prior work experience, and a master theoretically or in general is you're fine if you have 0 years of experience. What I would add to that also is that a lot of masters nowadays, they have sort of an experiential learning component to it. So if you have a 1-year master's or a 2-year master's, a lot of times you will do an internship or some component of experiential learning during your master's. So you can also gain practical experience during that. And a lot of students, even after that, if you tend to perform well during these internships, usually get full-time offers after that. So I don't think it's something that you should be worrying about. And second point, at least if I talk from NUS's perspective, they're genuinely really interested in your motivation to do a master. So if you're really passionate about the master, about the program, about the university, you stand as much a chance as somebody who has 1, 2, 3 years of work experience.
Great, great addition.
Also just to add to that, not only the students without experience get accepted into the MEM courses, but also they have an advantage after finishing the course at times, because there are a few internships or graduate programs which will not require a lot of experience, and they're actually looking for people who are clear in their mind and don't know what the industry looks like. And getting into a position of job without any experience after doing a MEM is also a big possibility, and there are great internship opportunities for people like that.
I would just like to add one more point. I absolutely agree to everyone saying that you don't necessarily need a lot of work experience, and I understand that. I would say, at least in my university, if I'm not mistaken, you did require just 3 months or so of work experience, which is just an internship, which I think, from my perspective, always helps. Because once you start studying in the college and you are surrounded by people who have internship work experience or in general work experience, it always gives you a bit more clarity as to what to expect from a master's. So from my perspective, I feel like if you can do an internship, if you have time, go ahead and do it, because it's only going to help. It'll never hurt you. And also, when I started looking for internships, it helped me having work experience. So I also saw my classmates who really didn't have any work experience struggle a tiny bit more, simply because they don't have that exposure. So if you can, I think, and if it helps build your CV, do it. But if you can't, nothing to fret about.
Yeah, thank you, Sophie. And that actually was the perfect bridge into my next question. I saw posted in the chat saying that I know lots of master's programs use case study methods, so they don't offer any internships. And the question is, do you think internships are important when taking a master? But I guess I'll open it up and just let's talk about maybe the pros and cons of the case method and not having an internship versus the internship in specific. I'll just open the floor and let it be a very broad response. Whoever wants to take that question. Ibrahim, I know you were the one who gave that question to me. Go for it.
Well, actually, this just continues our discussion which we were having earlier of how much experience you should bring in. Mm-hmm. How at ESMT, at least, the case studies and the assignments and how we deal with the case studies itself, it's actually preparing you for the workplace. You're dealing with problems, you're dealing with strategic issues in a firm, and you solve them in a case study. And that's actually preparing you. If you bring in a lot of experience with you, you're just inclined to a specific way of thinking, which just doesn't add up to the learning experience of all the other students. So internships, I think when choosing a master's program, internships should be an important part of it, even though case studies and everything is fine, but you need to have a program where they give you at least 6 months of internship experience, because that complements what you're studying, and it also helps you to network, to get a job later on, and it's very, very valuable. So yeah, internships in masters is, I would say, it's a must. Yeah.
Fantastic. Any other points on that question? No. Okay. I do have another question. I saw one of our panel members sent me a question, but I have one question before that, and this is something we haven't talked about yet, and that's really funding for the program. I know this is probably I don't want to say a fear, but definitely a consideration for a lot of people, as they're probably coming from undergraduate programs semi-recently. They may have had to take out a loan or something for that, and now they may have to take out another one. So can you talk a little bit about scholarships, grants, but then also maybe what happens if you don't have scholarships or grants to cover the program? What are your thoughts on making those decisions and planning for this master's program? And I will let Sophia, please.
So, I mean, for me, scholarships were a very important criteria, simply because I didn't want, or I didn't have the financial capacity to spend as much as I would like to. And I think that was one of the major considerations why I chose Germany, because it's quite affordable as compared to when you would like to go to another European country, from my perspective, at least from what I researched and learned. So that was one consideration. Also, for me, what helped is Germany has a lot of scholarship programs which the state offers. So, for instance, they have DART scholarships that give you living expenses, so on and so forth. They also have a lot of scholarships tied in with the political parties of Germany, where you can apply as an immigrant, and as long as you have certain German skills or you meet the criteria, there's a high chance that you can get it, and that's really helpful. Obviously, all universities, from my experience, offer scholarships. So apply for it, write essays, or talk to people who have got it beforehand and apply well in advance. That increases your chances, and that's your another option. And I think that's what I did. So I looked at all the other options, researched well in advance, and applied. And didn't put all my eggs in one basket. And that really helped me, ensuring that whatever money I can fund through scholarships, I can, and the remaining, given it shouldn't be that significant, you can always earn back. So I think that's what I would suggest to someone who's now looking for scholarships.
Fantastic. No, great point, Sophia. Anyone have anything to add to that with their own personal experiences? Tofel?
Yeah, I would just like to say that if you're early in your undergrad and you have the capability to do well in your studies, then you should definitely try your best to do so. And you should probably also try to get some extracurricular experiences, that sort of thing, because lots of schools have merit-based scholarships that can sometimes be quite substantial. And these, since they're merit-based, if you do well in your undergrad, then you can have a pretty decent shot at getting one of these, and they can save you a lot from your tuition fees. And just another tip on the topic of scholarships would be to focus on applying early to the program, because it's generally easier to get scholarships if you apply early in an early application round. And some schools also have hard deadlines, so if you apply after those, then you won't be considered for a scholarship at all. So definitely apply early and try to take advantage of that as much as possible.
That's a great point, Tofel. And just a shout out to anybody watching this as well. If you have an idea of the programs you're wanting to go to, definitely go to their websites, look at their information about scholarships, when's the best time to apply. But then also we have several of the schools here on the Master's Spotlight. So go watch their presentations as well. You can probably glean some insight there. But Abhishek, please, if you have something.
Yeah, just to add to that, also, other than the merit-based scholarships, IE is very big on diversity, and I think a lot of other colleges do that as well. So if you come from a diverse cultural or a educational background and you bring something new to the class, they would really support you with scholarships. And also, a lot of the colleges have good tie-ups with financial aid and funding and different banks where you get priority. So when you get a course you like, you should actually approach them, and they might be able to help you out even if you feel like there's a financial constraint. They do have predominantly a lot of tie-ups with different financial aids and banks to help you out that way.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you for that addition to that one as well. And then, okay, so moving on, I saw, Avinash, you sent me, you prompted me with one question, but I also want to open it up to the broader audience as well. This one says, for anyone at NUS specifically, how's the market in Singapore? Asking about visas with the current situation going on. But I do want to open that up to maybe anybody who is international looking at going to a master's program outside their company or country. What does that landscape look like right now? Do you expect it to change in the near future? What are your thoughts there? I'll definitely, Avinash, please start us off, but if others have feedback, I'd love to hear it as well.
Yeah, so I sort of scraped the comment section for this one because I know at least in our year in Singapore, it was one of the key questions, and unfortunately, quite a few people struggled with this. So I think it's definitely difficult if I talk from a Singapore perspective, because there are just regulatory restrictions on how many foreigners companies in Singapore are able to employ. So if my take would be like, if, for instance, specifically for Singapore, if you really want to go to Singapore for the masters and you are 100% committed to stay in Singapore, you might get disappointed. That being said, I think if you take that experience elsewhere, either back to your home country, as an example, I think it's really valued. So keep that in mind. But it's a good question, and I do agree that it is very difficult, at least in Singapore, to employ foreigners.
Sorry, just realized I muted myself. Thank you for that. Does anyone have any additional pointers or any additional comments on that? Abraham, I see you.
Yeah, I actually saw like 2 questions regarding the work permit in Germany and working there. So after graduating, you actually get 18 months of work job seeking visa. So you have 18 months to look for a job, and then if you find a job, then of course you get a work permit due to that job. Regarding the visa application for international students, it's a little tough right now because of the COVID. The embassies are closed and so on. But that should not affect your studies, because even if I'm in Berlin, I'm still at home studying, because so you could do the same in your country. So the teaching is online, and as soon as it goes offline on campus, the embassies would open up. So the visa process is expected to smoothly work out for most of the students.
Great, thank you for that. And then, oh, go ahead, Abhishek.
And there was one more thing I could add, that our university offers an extension for 6 months to 10 months if you just find an internship on your own. And the big problem for companies in Europe is that they have to sponsor your visa, and they have to go with the process to the government saying that we are hiring this person because we don't have anyone in our own continent or in our own country. They have to just forge that. But they get more confident if they can hire you as an intern initially. And what IE helps us do is, if you find an internship, IE will show it as a part of the course, and the company will not have to do any paperwork, and that helps you settle in the environment, and they also become more confident to retain you after that.
Oh, thank you. No, that was a great last point. And then we're getting close to time, so I think we have a good 2 more questions. One I do want to ask, because this is something that I've seen asked quite a bit throughout, both in the forums, chats, everywhere, is how are y'all networking during this time, both maybe with professionals, but then also with your other classmates? It's an online setting right now, so it's not. It may be a little bit more difficult to really do this to the extent of some other times. So how are you adjusting to this online period? How are you networking both professionally and socially?
Fortunately, on my part, I can say that we have been face-to-face since July 2020. So on the classmate and the cohort part, or even with the professors, we do get some FaceTime with them, and we get to interact a lot with the industry professionals in the industry. If we want to network with them, our university provides us platforms where they get a lot of professionals from many companies together, and you can directly text them in a chat window or schedule a meeting. and maybe connect with them on LinkedIn. So it's been quite smooth till now.
Oh, fantastic. And I assume then, is that why you're wearing a mask? Are you actually?
Yes, I'm actually on campus right now, working after, but we did have classes. It's just that this regulation is here.
Perfect. That was one of the questions in the chat, so I thought we'd ding that off the list as well. Avinash, Ibrahim, I saw you also unmute for a second. So
yeah, so the networking is difficult, I would say, but we've got a lot of opportunities. There has been an online fair from recently, ESMT arranged it, so that was great. We could go and chat with many companies, and then twice or thrice a week there are panel discussions where alumni or company presentations happen. So we just add them on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is my best friend these days because I'm looking for an internship. So just add on LinkedIn, reach out to them later on. That's how it works. And then also as part of student clubs and associations, I get to meet a lot of MBAs and executive MBAs, and they already bring a lot of work experience. So it's a great opportunity to actually network with them because they are well connected in the industries, in multiple different industries. So there's an in-house networking opportunities as well, which is awesome.
fantastic. Avinash, did you want to add as well?
Yeah, maybe I'll add more of the professional side to this. For instance, since I already work at PwC, I think what's really good if you want to sort of build your professional network is try and attend these companies call them in-house days or these corporate events where you can sort of try and connect with these industry people. And I think also what a lot of companies are realizing, or at least what we in PwC Amsterdam are realizing, is that all these virtual sessions, it's better to sort of split the groups and having them in smaller groups. So like, for instance, our panel now is with 6 of us. So keep the groups small. And I think a lot of these, this also counts for school. So if you're currently a MBA or a master student, try and set up meetings with your classmates, but don't make it like 30 people in the call, because then not everybody can talk. But keep it small groups, 4, 5, 6. And I think companies are also learning that this is the best approach. So I think I look forward to seeing that going forward.
That's a fantastic point. And I know we are coming up close on time, so I did want to do kind of one last roundtable question before we close out. And that's really just going to be a general, what advice do you have? What is your kind of final tidbit of advice for those that are about to embark on that application process? Both how do they narrow down to a final list of schools that they're interested in? How do they narrow down to specifically what master's program? Maybe they're just a little bit confused. What is kind of that last minute advice? And we'll do the same round that we did during introduction. So Ibrahim, if you want to go ahead and start us off.
Yeah, I would give one basic advice that be yourself. It's easier said than done. But if you portray someone you're not, the program is going to get really, really hard. So that's the first step. And to shortlist, I would say that just prioritize what is your objectives you want to get from a master's. Is it networking? Is it a good job? Is it subject knowledge? What is it? Just prioritize them, that okay, 1, 2, 3, and then see which program fits that priority list the best. For me, it was ESMT because it was in Berlin. It was international. The specialization was a perfect fit. So that's why I chose ESMT. And then you have to do the same for yourself and just be yourself and enjoy the process, I guess. You'll miss writing a lot of cover letters and motivational letters.
No, great point. And Toefl, go ahead and hand it off to you.
Yeah, so I can begin by saying that universities in general are not very good at describing precisely what their programs are actually like. Because most of the time when you go to their website and you try to read up on it, you'll get a vague summary, you get maybe a list of course titles, but you you're going to want some more information than what they provide before you decide that you're going to spend perhaps $2 or $3 grand on an education. I know before I joined this program, there was an LSE alumni that wrote this long article on LinkedIn describing precisely everything about the program, what the whole experience was like. And my classmates, or most of my classmates, ended up reading that and found it incredibly useful, because there was so much information that the school didn't provide. So my number one tip for those of you who are looking at applying to any master's program is to reach out to people who've done it before or who are currently doing it. The easiest way to do this would just be to reach out to people on LinkedIn, because in my experience, people are pretty open to sharing their experiences about their education and telling you about what it's really like. So that would be my number one tip.
Yeah, fantastic. I know a lot of people think about networking in terms of the business sense, but I think it's just as important when trying to learn about the program that you're about to join. So thank you for that. Sophia?
I think I already agree a lot to what Ibrahim and Tofas said. What I personally did is, I essentially had an understanding of where I wanted to do. So it was Germany for me, and obviously on a basic level, the courses are clear. So I kind of went very objective and made not a pros and cons list, but I would say that looked at all the factors. What people tend to do is just look at the global rating or just look at the course. I would say look at, for instance, the city. City defines your student experience. It's extremely important. Talk to your seniors, ask their experience, because every university offers an extremely different experience. So everyone's not suited for that. So look into that. I mean, living expense in that city was a big factor for me. And I mean, what are the alumni from that university doing? And I think all these factors, you can easily, instead of just having it very theoretically in your mind, you can convert that into, in my case, I did it in Excel, but you can always make it more objective and kind of really compare the universities that either you have or you potentially can get in, and then make a much more informed decision than just going with your gut feeling. So that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, fantastic. Doing your due diligence or research on the programs is extremely important.
Yeah, because it's 2 years of your life in most of the cases, so I would say that.
Well, thank you so much for that, Sophie. And Abhishek, I know everyone's hitting some hard points, so what else do you have for us?
I would just be reinforcing what my friends have just said, but I work closely with the admissions team as well. So it's important to be clear in your mind what you're looking for. If you're looking for cultural diversity or a specific type of profession after you finish the master, the rankings and ratings are not everything. You actually need to look at what you need, and it comes only when you talk to someone who's been there and has experienced the thing, who can actually give you the real picture. So just before making a decision, try to get in touch with someone. That's my advice.
Great. Yeah. And then, well, to everyone watching, that's now 2 people that really honed in on you need to talk to someone. So if that point hasn't been made, I think you should definitely listen to that one. And Avinash, I know you were kind of the last on this round, but do you have anything additional or reinforce any of those points?
Yeah, I mean, going last in such a panel is always difficult when all the tips provided are really solid. So I would say listen to all that. Maybe one last tip from my side would be keep your end goal in mind. So at the end of the day, you do a master's and you want to get something out of it, right? You want to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. So and it could also be that you want to go into academia. I have a good friend of mine that did a master's and he wants to continue doing a PhD. So it doesn't always have to be that you want to enter the job market, but keep that end goal in mind. If you want a specific job in an industry in a specific country, keep that in mind. So if you're going to do a master's in, I don't know, US, but you want to end up in China, then yeah, that's also something that you should think about.
Yeah, I was actually for going last. That was a fantastic end point too. Is definitely keep your eye on the prize, keep the end goal in mind. I mean, especially even when you're going through the program, there's a lot going on. Just always remember why it was that you wanted to do that in the first place. But then also on the planning side, how do you get to the destination you want to be? And then, like Sophia said, use that as research to really identify that. And as Ibrahim said, use that to weed out your schools. And then once you have those schools weeded out, then Tofel and Abhishek give you the great advice to then reach out to those students and solidify that. So I really like it. I mean, our panel has been very cohesive in their answers. I think everyone's built off of each other very, very well. So I want to thank each and every one of you. This has been an amazing panel. The answers you've given have been fantastic. I know Ibrahim said on the YouTube chat to reach out to him on LinkedIn. If you guys find any of them, any of the other panel members on LinkedIn as well, I'm sure they'd be willing to talk to you about their school if you have any other questions of their program. But we are going to go ahead and end it here. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone online, for your questions. Thank you once again to the panel members. This has been a fantastic panel session. But we are going to go ahead and close it out. So thank you all.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.